Hello and welcome back to the me drawing every day, I guess. I don't know, day 3 of actually talking over the video. Yep, today I originally thought of trying to do something with the number 2 due to the 4 2s of the day. And then I thought, oh, what about doing 2 lanterns? And then I just never drew the lanterns and I made the skull all flamey and fiery eventually. So, you know, there's really nothing to do with 2 anymore. 2 eye sockets, 2 hands, 2 feet, as opposed to every other humanoid who definitely doesn't have 2 of those exact things. Yep, I started out with lines like I have been trying to do with some of the recent ones, but I also didn't want it to take 500 years. And by 500 years, I mean more than 2 hours. So I ended up just coloring in a base color and then merging the lines to the base color and then rendering it how I normally render, as if it was just a digital painting. And it sped it up considerably. Well, at least I think. I also might have taken 3 hours yesterday because of, you know, clothing, which I don't typically do and should do more of to learn, but whatever. What else to say? I used reference. I hope that's not surprising with this one, especially with the hands. The hands would look so much worse without reference. Thank you, reference. Also, I made my own reference, so you're probably not going to be able to find these anywhere. Maybe something similar. Well, I did take a couple references and like smush them together. And I like sorta kinda cheated because I did look at how I previously drew skulls to come up with how to draw this skull. But when I drew the skull I was looking at, I did use a reference. So it's like a weird reference amalgam thing that's probably honestly a downgrade. But I cover it up a lot in this one, so probably not noticeable. Yeah, so here's me, you know, doing line and base color, and I start off with doing some really basic shading before merging the lines together, or line and base color together. Just trying to get like a general shading idea because I didn't want to smudge all my lines and then have the shadows in the quote-unquote wrong spot. Or at least wrong in my mind. At this point, I'm still probably thinking of doing lantern-y stuff, but eventually I just think a flaming skull would be so much cooler. But you just gotta trust me on that since I didn't do like a sketch of lanterns anywhere. What else? I mean, I feel like there's not much to talk about yet. I mean, I guess the way that I render, at least this time for sure, I didn't really have lights in until way later, and the background obviously still currently white. So I do just kind of visualize where lighting is gonna go, which probably not the smartest thing to do. I feel it's probably a lot smarter to put a light in somewhere before you actually put highlights and shadows like fully onto a character. Like doing some general ones without rendering too much, that's probably fine, but I do like the whole thing almost. But I do end up adding blue highlights and stuff for the fire after I add the actual fire itself, so I did good there, I think, maybe. Outside of the painting itself, for anyone getting through this far, I just want to ask, how do you feel about the voiceovers? Because looking at those stats, because everyone wants to hear about YouTube stats, the ones with voiceovers do equal, if not worse, than those without. So, I just want to know, do you find these helpful? Or do you just hate me rambling and not actually knowing what to talk about? Yep, that's my question for you. Anyway, back to this painting, drawing, fire. The way I do fire, I have like a base color of, in this case, blue. And then using that same color, or in this case I ended up going a bit more saturated, I use a color dodge brush to just paint over it to get the like brighter bits of the flame. And I would do the exact same thing with red or green or whatever color flame. I don't know how I do multicolor ones. I've never done a multicolored flame. Probably something similar though, but the color dodge would just be a different color entirely than the outside. Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't work. And then after that for the fire, I put blur on it. In this case, I did a lens blur. Typically, I do a motion blur in the direction the fire is flowing, but in this case, it kind of doubles back on itself. So I just did a lens blur to hopefully cover all my bases. And then I went back in and added in a bunch of shadows and light. Because, surprise, surprise, when I did it without the light, it kind of looked like there was an atmospheric sunlight instead of a big fire. And then I tried to think, like, oh, I still need to do something with 2, outside of all the previously mentioned things that would have had 2 of anyways. So I end up adding fire underneath the feet too, to try to be like 2 flames. Now, is that successful? Probably not. I can't imagine many people think about that until, you know, I just said that. Oh yeah, I also added some texture on here because, you know, plain white humanoid body, kind of boring after I've done that a million times, and by a million I mean probably a couple hundred times, of varying colors. So I ended up going over with some of the default Krita texture stamps, and then I went in with the little knife I use, rock textured, and then added more onto it. Here's that second flame thing that I was talking about. I also like how it gives a reason to have a second light source, so I can do a bounce, well, I guess it wouldn't be a bounce, but a little rim light on the legs, and also the bottom of the arm on that side. And yeah, I think that's about it. I didn't actually do anything for the background, I just had a color dodge layer that I used a color dodge airbrush on for like the blue glowy bits that are not fire. And then I had little tiny blue particles for sparks. And yep, thank you for watching. Bye bye, have a good day. Bye, bye bye.